Fausto Pugliese, president of Cyber Trading University.
Most people always focus on the past, where as a professional day trader, we just focus on the future. You can do very well in trading, and you don't have to have a good amount of movement for the stock to go up.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Fausto Pugliese, and we have Brian McAboy here. And thanks for another episode of the Cyber Traders. And hell of a market we've been having lately regarding about this whole Warren thing. But it's not about understanding about what's happening, what to trade today. It's about learning and not falling into the trap and making those big mistakes. So we're here to bring Brian because I thought he would have been a really good guest to talk about somebody that learned from losing and then making a success out of it and teaching you guys how to learn, because that's one of the biggest things I teach. You remember, it's not about making money, it's about controlling losses. That's what teaches you how to be a very good trader. So Brian, welcome to the show. How's everything going?
Oh, awesome, man. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks for coming, everyone. We really appreciate you being here. So, Brian, tell me a little bit about you. I did some research on you, and I noticed you've been trading for a long time. You only go back into the 90s. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I started I started trading back before the internet. When, like, if you wanted to place a trade, you're picking up the phone to call your broker to place the trade. Those are where I cut my teeth. So
yeah, I remember. Well, that's when I started. I started back in the 90s. So you look like you look at probably close to my age. You got enough grays. I mean, I'm 53. How old are you?
I'll be 62 this year.
62. Look at that. And look at that. You see, what's unbelievable? I've noticed that a lot of our traders, around our age, we start younger. We like some of the, we like some of them like the fast stuff, but like when we get our age, we become a little more conservative. So a lot of our audience are between the age of 50 and 90. And listen, it's and you're not looking to try to hit these grand slam home runs, trying to hit a day's pay. But what really inspired me about your story, tell me a little bit about your first trade, what went wrong. You said you did a trade, you lost about $45,000 on your trade, and then it reshaped your whole approach about the market. What's that all about?
Well, it wasn't a single trade. It was over my first year. I had, like a lot of traders, looked at it. It's like, easy enough. I get it. Actually, Ken Roberts, I don't know if you remember his book back in the 90s. He introduced so many people to trading. He had like a snail mail campaign where he's selling his book, The Greatest Business on Earth, talking about futures trading. That's what got me hooked.
Mm-hmm.
So so I farted around with that in the mid 90s. Toward the late 90s is when I actually got serious and more active trading. And when in my first year, I really didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I was trying to work out of a book. We didn't have YouTube back then. So I'm learning out of the book, and I'm flying by the seat of my pants. My broker, he was a young kid. He knew how to be a broker and place trades. He didn't really know how to trade. So I'm basically trying to teach myself, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like I said, I had the book, but it was of marginal help. So I took my account from 30 grand up to 47,000, just basically pure luck, because most days I'm just, I got my mouth watering, I got dollar signs in my eyes, I'm just going to keep, spinning the roulette wheel. And but I got lucky. I managed to run my account up to 47 grand. And then we had a big spike in oil, and I got to ride that up, and it's like, now let it ride, but that was the fateful day when I remember it very clearly. He's telling me to go ahead and take profits, and I'm like, no, I'm to let it ride. And I was like all in on this trade. Way too much. Risk management wasn't even part of my education at that point.
Okay.
So I watched my account run all the way down to $1,700. Just the slow destruction over about a month. And
wow.
me doing all sorts of stupid stuff, hoping, it's going to turn around, it's going to come back, and all this kind of stuff. And so I did the whole stressful destruction of my account. I mean, basically what I learned out of it, and this was, it became clear out of a conversation with a buddy of mine. He did experiments with his trading. One of them was he did a stress test on himself. And this is where I learned what happened to me and what happens to traders who blow up their accounts. No, this was really cool. But he did this experiment where he took one of his strategies and he made it like super aggressive, where he was uncomfortable trading it. And he observed what happened over a few weeks. And so the first week, it's not a whole lot going on. Second week, he's starting to, make some mistakes, do some stupid stuff. Third week, man, it's getting bad. He's starting to lose money now. Fourth week, it's like he's out of control. And what we figured out all that was the reason he was blowing up his account was his subconscious was saying the stress is taking a toll on you, and you're going to stop. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna take a break. It's kind of like physically, when you're working too hard and
Yep.
you wind up getting sick and you're laid up for a week where you can't do a damn thing because your body just says, hey, no, you're going to take a break. And we're going to force it because you're not doing it consciously. Well, that's what happened with me. I wound up just blowing up my account because the stress was killing me. Even when I was making money, I felt like I was having a heart attack half the time. And I was way too young for that crap.
You have bad dreams. I had a lot of bad dreams in those days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It never leaves you alone. It's 24/7.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I blew up my account. And fortunately, when at the time I was also still working in the corporate world, I was working in a manufacturing plant. We're making plastic bottles for like Coke and Pepsi, Gatorade, stuff like that. And my job was a quality manager. And so I was very fortunate because, I had the job, so I didn't, wreck my life. I hadn't quit the job to go full-time trading yet, since I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, so I blew up my account. I took a break. And a friend of mine, talking with her about it, she's like, Brian, at the plant, you're the quality manager there. You're responsible for 183 people, all this stuff. And your job is consistent performance. That's what quality is all about, is consistent performance. And he said, in your job, you crush it. You guys are killing it. And I got to thinking about it. It's like, yeah, true. It's in the plant where I was working. It was, high volume, high speed, razor thin margins. We had like zero margin for error. And so I had to be good at getting good, consistent performance out of everybody. And she said, why don't you just take what you do at work and apply it to your trading? And I'm like, duh. Because what I was doing at quality, and it's so perfect for traders. Everybody's heard of, like SPC or Six Sigma and that kind of stuff. But what a lot of people don't realize in quality assurance, the main focus is on people and getting people processes, the activities that people do, lined out to best practices, and then putting the training and everything in place so that everybody performs well consistently. And it's like, yes, this is absolutely perfect for traders. And when I took that and started applying it to my trading, where now it's like, okay, I've got, certain strategies. How do I build a good solid process around it? How do I test it out? Again, from my quality background, knowing how to test and all that, and analyze and all that kind of stuff. And then also how to train for consistent execution. And it allowed me to totally turn my trading around. And that's really what I've been teaching traders for the last 20 years is how to
basically
do that.
So let me get this straight, Brian. So this is basically your approach is you take quality, assurance principles, and you basically applied it to trading, right?
Yep.
So basically,
Yep.
So how do you apply? Give me an example of that. Maybe the trades. How do you make an example of how do you apply that to it?
Well, like I said, it's basically 3 steps. First of all, you got to get clear on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. Like I said, whether it's trading or any other business activity. That's why I love quality. It's universally applicable, and it's not restricted to any certain type of trading or even any strategy. This is kind of how you get good at it. So anyway, you get clear about what you're doing with your strategy. You build a good repeatable process on it. And there are certain characteristics to a good repeatable process. Again, that's where my quality background came in handy. But you build a good solid process. The main thing is most traders get it backwards.
Right.
They're thinking, consistent profits is like the magic buzzword. Every site in the trading space, consistent profits is the magic buzzword. It's like, buy our strategy, you'll make those consistent profits. Buy our tennis shoes, you'll make those consistent profits. It's like, that's the big promise. And everybody's thinking, I want to get profitable. Find a good strategy, I'll get profitable, and then I'll figure out how to be consistent about how to stick to my rules. That's backwards. From a quality perspective, it's like, no, let's establish the consistency first. Let's get a good consistent process. Because if you're consistent, that's pretty easy to fix. We can adjust that to make it more profitable. But if your process is all over the place, that's kind of hard to fix. And that's where a lot of traders are.
So that basically what you're trying to do is like, one thing I really like the way you trade is because I kind of use the same type of concept when I teach my students. So and the most critical things that traders miss out is that you don't realize that you got to treat like a business. And that's basically what you're doing. You're treating like a business. That's what trading is. Yep. It's not about having, I know it's fun and all that, but it sucks when you lose. But how do you apply that? How would you explain to somebody how you apply that towards the business of your trading right now?
Well, actually, I'm glad you bring. Actually, as far as trading as a business, this could be like a 4-hour conversation because there's so many parallels between small business and trading. Because, like I said, trading is a business. Most people don't even recognize that. One of the very first things that I'd love to talk about, or the conversations I like to have with traders when I get to talking to them, is just running the numbers, looking at the numbers of your trading business, and is, the way you're going about it going to meet your financial goals? And so, I've heard all kinds of different conversations, gotten in debates on forums back when they were around, as far as, how much you should be, expect to make with the trading business. And the whole thing is and like the most basic business thinking that you can apply to trading is, okay, how many opportunities am I getting and how big am I trading? Because if I have certain financial goals with my trading, I want to be making so much money per month, or generating so much in profits, like you would with a business. It's like, okay, what kind of level of activity do I need to have, and how big does that activity need to be?
Is that the document you're talking about? Like, is that basically how they document themselves and measure their process?
No, this is the business aspect. There's two different levels traders have to operate at. You've got the business owner, you're the business owner, you're the investor, you're the manager of the business.
Right.
So that whole role set over here. Then you got the day-to-day trading. Two completely different roles. And you need as a trader, you have to be able to step into the different roles. Just part of the time you're just a trader. Sometimes you're the trading analyst. Sometimes you're quality, you're troubleshooting and fixing things. Other times you're running the business. It's like, okay, yeah, how much money, how much investment do we need? What kind of ROI am I expecting from the business? How long is my payback period? The business planning side of it. So like I said, you have the different roles. And again, this is one where a lot of traders, we just don't think to look at it like this. It's like, yeah, we have different roles we have to step into, and certain skill sets and certain things that are part of that role, actively doing it in our business. So anyway, the business thinking that one needs to apply, like basic, before you can get into strategies and everything, is okay. And I love this because it's so true. I'll have traders ask me from time to time, it's like, how much can I even expect to make from trading? Trading. And I'll say, well, the numbers of trading work the same as they do in any business. Your revenue is going to be determined by two things. How many transactions are you processing in a month, and how big are those transactions? Period.
It's a numbers game.
Yeah, but those are the two things. And so some people are sitting there saying, well, if you're looking to make more than 5% a month with your trading, that's unrealistic. It's like, no, it's not. All depends on how many trades you're placing and how big are those trades. I had one guy come to me. It's one of my favorite stories. Get on the phone with this guy, and we're talking, and then it's like, we're going through the standard kind of question set. It's like, okay, how much are you looking to make with your trading? And it's like, well, I'd like to get about $3,000 a month. That's, just because it's one of several businesses that I have. I'm like, okay, so how big is the account you're working with? $5,000. And I'm like, okay, that's ambitious. You're looking for about a 60% ROI monthly. But I'd learned not to jump to conclusions. And so I asked him, okay, so how are you doing your trading? Well, the thing is, he was day trading and was placing like 10 trades a day. That's a lot of trades in a month. And he was exercising good risk management. He was only trading like 1%. But he was getting in so many trades per month that we were able to get him to his $3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he had the volume of trades, even though they were still small trades. And so it's like, yeah, with trading, you can plan it out and you can be involved in it any way you want from a business perspective. And that's the cool thing about it. You can be, swing trading, long-term, position trading, or you can be high volume, small trades, and you can have a crazy ROI on it.
Uh-huh.
And it's cool. And it's realistic, and it's not necessarily being risky or hyper aggressive. Like I said, his risk management was solid. He was just getting the volume in.
Brian, I always feel like some people, there's a misconception. People think you need a lot of money to trade. And like here you have somebody start with a small account and you still could do well. Personally, when someone tells me they want to make 60%, I don't know what that really means. I try to tell them to make 60% on $5,000 at the end of the year is peanuts. Better off going to work at McDonald's. All right. You make more money, but there's some stocks that we trade that are not that expensive that, it's all about, it's a numbers game. It's a point system that I always try to tell them. So, it's a good start. You don't want to underfund yourself. But, it's got to be very, you want to make a certain percent of not blowing up that account, because you could do it pretty quickly and be very careful. But, but that's, there you go. Here you are telling you, what did you say you made, about $2,000 a month?
No, we got him to $3,000 a month.
$3,000 a month. Okay. So that's a lot more than 60% a year if you do the numbers. Now you're talking about, you said what, 300-400%?
Oh yeah. He was doubling his account like within 2 months.
Yeah. So I'm saying, so yeah. And that's a great, and that's the same type of things I try to preach to everyone, where it goes up, and it's just like kind of building more growth. Now, regarding about your strategy and everything else, so how are you, like, what are the biggest mistakes that you find? I mean, listen, being an educator and a guru like myself, you always learn something. What do you learn after talking to everyone? What's like the most popular mistake that people are making?
Well, there's two, and they go hand in hand. One of them, it's kind of not their fault. We all seem to do it. But the first one is underestimating trading. And it's because there's like basically zero barriers to entry to becoming a trader. It's like, if you got money to open an account, you can be trading. There are no other requirements.
Right.
So a lot of people, they almost look at it like it's an entry-level job, that there are no requirements to be successful at this. And it's like, no, this is a skill-based occupation, and it requires a variety of skills. And if you're not skilled up, if you're missing skills, it's going to be rough. This is not entry level. It doesn't lend itself to just being figured out, where you just keep trading and you're just naturally going to, get good at it in a hurry. No, it takes a long time if all you're doing is trading, if that's your education. So anyway, the big mistake, the first big mistake is underestimating trading. And then the other one is really not pursuing the personal development and growth to get good at this.
Right.
One of my favorite analogies to illustrate this is with golf. I mean, I grew up around golf. My dad, he was an avid golfer, loved to play, kept his golf clubs in the trunk, he played every chance he could. And his grandfather was even more of a nut. I never got the bug, but I grew up knowing the game, played, somewhat regularly with my dad. It's like, I understand the game, know all the rules, know all the terminology, know how it works, know what I'm supposed to do, watch my feet, my stance, backswing, keep your head down, all that kind of stuff. Hit it down the middle, 2-putt on the green. Like I said, I know all about the game, and I know what I'm supposed to do. But that doesn't make me a good golfer.
Right.
Trading's the same way. Just because you understand how everything works and you know what you're supposed to do, that doesn't make you good at it.
Right.
And so many traders are struggling, and they're sitting. I mean, I've had tons of people over the years come to me. They're like, Brian, I got a good strategy, but man, I just can't seem to stick to them. Just, keep making all these mistakes, and it's so hard to make money. What I got to fix is me. There's got to be something wrong with me. And it's like, that's a valid perspective. There's logic to that thinking. But
well, to your point, you bring a very good point. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I have the bug for fishing. You know what I mean? And I know some people like to fish, and and I'm a good captain. I know where to take them. But you're going to strike out more than others. But some people, like when you say golf, I sucked at it. I was a golf member. And like us men, we try to, we have hobbies, you know what I mean? Like golf, fishing, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And I tried it, and I just was very good at fishing. You know what I mean? So to get to your point, which I'm glad you brought that up, that I always tell everybody this, that there are so many styles of trading, right? You could option trade, you can stock trade, futures, crypto, the Forex, whatever it may be. You might have the bug, like you just said, to do it. You know how to, you know the analyst, you know how everything. If you don't get it, move on. You know what I mean? There are other things you can do with other habit. Listen, I tried golf. I sucked at it. I knew everything. I took lessons. I wanted to make it work. I spent the money to be a golf member. And I'm going to people, and I tried. I mean, you got to give it a certain time. You just can't do one shot and that's it. It's just not for me, but I really like fishing. And it's just like saying, I really like options, but I was really good at stock trading. So just stick with the stock, So kind of pretty much the same kind of metaphor when you bring up to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the other mistake that traders make, though, is they're sitting here thinking that they've got some psychological issue. I got some money, some issues with money and my relationship with money, or fear of success. Or, my mommy said something to me when I was 5 years old that traumatized me and screwed me up for trading. And I'm like, no, if you've been able to amass, 25 or 50 or $100,000 to trade with, you're probably a reasonably disciplined person. You probably are okay with money and success, and you got a good work ethic, and you have all the traits as a person. What you're lacking is your development as a trader. And so it's not you're screwed up. It's mostly, and I get pushback on this from time to time. It's like you're trying to do a job you haven't been properly trained how to do.
Right.
And it's not psychological issues, and it's like
great way of putting it. That's exactly the truth.
Yeah,
I say it all the time.
Yeah. Well, the Peter Principle. You heard of the book, The Peter Principle? Old book, been around. a long time.
We're just kind
But
of
he
losing
was
Brian
one,
here for a
and the Peter
second.
principle was what came out of his businesses. Are we back now?
Yeah, we're back. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, the book, The Peter Principle, came out a long time ago, but I like it because it's applicable to traders. Anyway, the Peter Principle said, in any big organization, a person will rise to their level of incompetence and remain there. And the thought process behind it was businesses were struggling because they'd hired some guy, Bob, like entry level. He's doing really well, so they promote him, and he's doing really well at the new job, and so they keep promoting him until he reaches a level where he's no longer doing real well, and he stays there. Well, what a lot of people, when they get into trading, is they don't realize it, but they just promoted themselves into a new position that they haven't had previous experience or training for. They don't have the skill set, and that was the whole thing in the Peter Principle was, before you put somebody in that position, you look at the skill set that's required for it, and you train them before you throw them in the position, and then they'll continue to excel because they have the personal characteristics. But if they were lacking the skill set, so with trading, so many of us, we look at it and it looks simple, and it's like, I get it, I know what I'm supposed to do, and we jump into it. And we don't realize it's like, no, there's a skill set to it. So we struggle. And if you think about anything that you do, anything, doesn't matter what it is, when you're learning and you're still not as good as you need to be, it's rough, and it's stressful, it's emotional, and you're probably not going to do real well. And
so how do you fix it? So how do you teach these people how to fix that issue? I mean, here we are talking all the negative. That's the positive part about it. How do we fix it? I mean, here you are, you went through that whole procedure. Now you figured it out, and you explained to them, what do you do? How do you pass that and make it successful?
Well, like I said, with the quality assurance principles, in a nutshell, another way to look at it is, well, the thing I always love about quality assurance, it's basically success by design. And when you apply it to trading, but like I said, there's 3 stages to it. First of all, you got to get clear on what your strategy is, understand the premise behind it. It's like, what do I think is going on in the markets that makes this strategy work, where I can get in and out of the market and make money? So you got to be clear on the premise of your strategy, but then you build a good, solid, repeatable process on that. And that's where so many traders get screwed up. They think that because they have a good strategy, that they also have a good system, and they're not the same.
Right.
A strategy is like I said, how you're going to get in and out of the market. Get in at the beginning of the trend, and I'll exit when it's exhausting. Okay, that's a strategy. Your system is how you're going to execute that strategy consistently, hundreds or thousands of times. And they're not the same. Just because you have a good strategy doesn't mean you have a good system. And most traders I've found, because nobody teaches this, is how do you build a good process? And it really is, it's a process. Systematic trading, rules-based strategy, and all that kind of stuff. They're common terms. But again, from my quality experience, what I learned, and I actually listed it out, there are 14 distinct characteristics to a highly repeatable process. Now, one of the things I was able to bring from manufacturing that I found very helpful for myself and a lot of other traders, in manufacturing, we had to write up work instructions and procedures just on how to do different jobs. And what we found was, when we first started doing it, people weren't following it very well. And it's like, all right, so what's wrong with our documents? And what we wound up doing, and as the quality manager and working with the other tech guys in the plant, it's like, well, what we need to do is we need to test the document before we make it official and put it out there. And so what we would do is we'd write up like a work instruction for a specific task. The way we would test it is, you grab somebody in the plant that works there. They know their way around, but they don't know that job. And you hand them the document and say, here, go do this. And then you stay with them. And if they had any questions or they didn't do anything right, then you had to go back and edit the document. And only when you could hand it to somebody new and they could go do the job correctly and they didn't have any questions, that's when it became an official document. Well, with trading, it's real similar. If you're trying to work with a system, your step-by-step, how do I place trades, and you don't have it documented, that's the first problem. You really do need to have it documented. But you need to get it so that it's so clear and complete that you could hand it to another trader and they could go execute those trades the way you want them done without having to ask you any questions. When you've got it that clearly defined, now you've got a repeatable process. But if you're not to that point, you're going to have so many inconsistencies and opportunities for error That's why traders are struggling. And in trading, 80 or 90% there is not good enough.
Right.
That 10 or 20% is what's killing your profits and making it rough. You really got to get to that level where, yes, you got the skill sets and the proficiency and the skill at trading those strategies. That's when life starts getting easy at trading, and you can trade with some confidence and peace of mind. And prior to that, and you're not there yet, that's why it's stressful and emotional and you're making mistakes. Because I hate to hurt anybody's feelings, but I had to go through it myself. And it was a big wake up call for me. I just had to admit that I wasn't as good as I needed to be.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you say that, Brian, because that's how we kind of teach our students at Cybertrade University. Like I've been doing this for over 35 years, and I've seen, I talk to all my students, and there's so many educational ways of learning. And here you are, someone that's really kind of teaching more of this, the mental part about the business part about how to be very successful. And you hit something right on the head, which I always talk about. You give somebody a document, you hire somebody, you got to walk them through it. You got to explain it to them. You just can't just give them a piece of paper and try to figure it out. And that's what everybody wants to do. They go out there, they just watch a couple of videos and they think like, I'll figure it out. I'll do it on my own. And I'm like, that's not going to work for you, because are you going to actually, like, if you run a business, are you just going to, first of all, you know how hard it is to find somebody, right? Out of every 50 applications, you probably find one person and you think that's the person. And then, you got to go through probably at least 5 or 10 of those people, because they're going to be, then they're not going to work out. But you as a business owner, you gotta work with them if you want them to succeed. So as an educator, I tell them that when you come through our program, we're gonna coach you through it. We're gonna review your journals with you. We're gonna tell you what's going on. They're like, well, nobody does that. I get people that freak out that I even talk to them on the phone. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, I never talked to them. I'm like, well, I'm hiring you technically. Like, if I'm going to train you, I want you to succeed. I got to make a judgment call if you qualify. You'd probably not qualify to trade. Did anyone ever tell you that? I mean, everyone tell you point blank that this might not be for you. You know what I mean? They're like, no one really have done that. They're like, well, you know what? You're going to end up blowing up your account, and then who are you going to blame? You're going to be like, oh, it's me or whatever. Listen, it's like, I know you want to go to the gym and get in shape and lose weight, but you want to hire, I tell everyone, you know how you're going to lose weight? Hire a personal trainer, and you hire a nutritionist or go on Exepic, like those, I mean, like, someone's going to tell you, well, I can't afford this. Then it's not for you. If you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. I tell them, just go hire, a hedge fund or whatever. Just give your money to them and just do what you're really good at and call it quits. Because like you said, you'll end up blowing your account. You just said it's like 80, 90%, it's not good enough. It's a big failure rate in trading,
True.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where, and that's how you really know, Brian, like where you could explain that. And I explained to everybody where you really think you really did find someone that is going to teach you. Someone takes the time, walk you through it, explain to you, talk to you on the phone privately, not just be in a group, environment. You need that personal touch, especially with someone like you run a very successful business, that if you listen, like I said before, you spend a lot of time hiring someone, working to find somebody. And the only way you're going to make that guy good and successful and all the work that you put into it is up to you to make him understand what the job entails. Otherwise, it's going to fail and the company fails.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, you just touched on, you touched on something there that was like the other huge lesson out of my first year of trading. And again, you're saying, you can't just hand it to them, and so many traders, they want to kind of figure it out on their own. And it's like, that was one of my biggest lessons out of my first year, was that I was my own limitation. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I couldn't see what I couldn't see. And so I didn't even know what gaps to try to fill to make it work. And so getting the outside help is huge.
Yeah, it is.
Because like I said, otherwise you don't know what you don't know. And if it's in your blind spots,
and I tell you, you're not a dumb person. Like, some people just, like, you're coming into a new business. Like I had a conversation with someone really, really smart person, big guru and this and that. And we were talking about chickens, because I love chickens, which is just an example. And someone's like, I want to get into chickens. I want to get into eggs or raise it. But they're like, I don't want a rooster, And I keep telling them, like, well, what do you want a rooster for? You're not going to get a rooster. Like, well, don't I need a rooster for the chicken to lay an egg? And I'm like, no, that's unless you want to have babies. It's not going to fertilize it. Chicken lays eggs regardless. It's just no different than a human, a woman, having her period. It's not fertile. It's not going to have a baby. You know what I mean? Chicken's the same thing. Like, I never really thought of that. And like, that's okay, because no one ever explained it to you, it's the same thing about trading, and I'm glad that you brought it up and bringing that concept, because that's people don't understand. Just because you think you're really smart, and believe me, I've trained some really smart people. People I worked at NASA. I trained people that top engineers, like really smart people. But smart people always get it, Brian. If you want to be good at it, you got to surround yourself with people that are really smart at what they do. And that's how you become very good at it, but trying to figure out on your own is definitely a big failure rate.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also, like you were just saying, being humble enough to recognize I don't know
Yeah,
this yet.
absolutely.
Uh, we had this one mechanic at a plant that I worked at, and the guy was like a wizard around an injection molding machine electronically. He was like, I mean, everybody was like, "Damn, that guy's good." And he got asked to help out on one of the other crews, and he comes cruising over and like, "Oh man, Mike's here, awesome man, man, he kills it." He's like, "No, stop." He said, "I don't know squat
Right.
about this, so you treat me like I'm brand new because this is not my area of expertise." And he was smart enough to recognize
Right.
that. And that's where a lot of traders get screwed up, because again, most people that get into trading are generally above average.
Right.
They really are. If you think about it. I mean, most are, upper middle class professionals, intelligent people. And so, but that's that can be a downfall for us, because we can look at trading and again underestimate it, because oh yeah, easy. I'm successful everywhere else. Sure, that looks easy, and we'll step into it, and it's like no, not that easy. You better recognize that you're a rookie here and you got things to learn. And if you can be humble, then you stand a chance. But if you're walking into it with this false, overconfidence like I did, you're going to get your head kicked in until you say, all right, I give.
Well, and you know what, Brian? It's not really a bad thing, I tell everybody, because sometimes you need a wake-up call, because sometimes people get a little cocky. They really think they know they get it. And I tell them, like, you know what? You should go out there. Go, like I always tell everyone, do yourself a favor. Just go have some fun. Buy one share of the stock, see how it works out, and then come back to me 6 months later and tell me how you did, because you think you're obviously good at it, go out there and do it. And believe me, like, listen, I live here in New York, okay? I'm surrounded by some of the best traders in the world. I mean, some of them even live across the street from my house. I mean, you're not going to beat these people, and they don't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I know some of the CEOs of some of the biggest companies in the world, I surround myself. I learn from them, and I try to explain to someone, you're not going to beat them, but you could join them. You just got to know how to play the game. And if you want to take the time to learn how to play the game, you'll get better at it. So don't ever think you're smarter than Wall Street, because you're just the ants on the floor, and you don't want to get stomped. You just want to get those crumbs. You know what I mean? These people are moving billions of dollars. Trust me. Because when I cover and I show people, like, it's funny, Brian, when I show people level 4 quotes, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even know this. How do you see the orders out there? And I'm like, that's great, because I didn't even know either, And until someone showed it to me, like, you're looking at the right of the chart. I mean, I didn't even know that even existed. I'm like, this technology's been around for 50 years. You're just finding out now. And you know what? That's why you're here. You know what I mean? But sometimes, like you said, and get back to what I just talked about, that sometimes you got to learn how to lose first before you can learn how to win. That's how you become very good at it, So now, getting back to the way you teach these people. So what has been the biggest, what is the success rate that you'll see people that once they get past one big hurdle, what do they have to get past that hurdle to get to the success part about it?
Well, as far as the success rate, generally speaking, I got probably about a 98% success rate. And there's a simple reason for that. I'm not teaching some clever strategy or some thing that I pulled out of my my hat to outsmart the markets. I'm teaching a basic skill set on how to get good at this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, get intentional about and clear about what you're doing. Make it consistent. Then let's test it out properly so that you know that it works. And then we're going to mentally condition you for good, consistent execution and build your confidence and your proficiency, so that when you take it to the market, you got a good, consistent process. You know that it works down in your bones because you have proof by your own hands, and you've been trained on how to execute consistently. So you're mentally conditioned to execute well, and you have the confidence again by your own hands that you know what you're doing, and that works. The only times that I've had any failures, I had 2 guys, and then this was years ago, that they had just been so mentally crushed that there was just no salvaging them. Like you said, they just need to go find something.
I won't even teach people like that. I'll be honest with you, Brian. Like, I get some people that like, please, got to help me out. Like, I remember being at an expo. I had this one guy, I'll never forget, a doctor, And all he kept, probably some people even know who he is. He's always there all the time. I hope he's not listening. He probably knows who he is. But he's like, Faust, I just got crushed. You got to help me out. This, that. I'm like, Doc, I mean, where were you 10 years ago? You're here every damn year. And you ask me the same thing. I tell you, sit in my events. I'm like, I'm sorry, I really can't help you, Doc. You know, like, listen, I'm being like you. Like, I don't want to be I want to be the, Dr. Death,
Right.
but you're not going to make it. It's like, you just stick what you're doing with what you're doing. You're too much because I got crushed. I'm in this position. Like, do yourself a favor, just move on. It's a bad divorce. You'll come back, just start over again. And I get it. And you know what? And it's terrible because sometimes us, like guys like us, we have to kind of, mentors like us, we have to kind of come to that reality and explain to them. Unfortunately, people out there, they'll just take your money and do it. But I love your concept about it. Now we're almost out of time here. And Brian, and by the way, everyone, we're going to have Brian back. So I'm going to post up a QR code. If anybody wants to come and join an event with us that we're going to do, Brian, again, a workshop on how he teaches this, just take your cell phone right there. You can scan that QR code. We got a live workshop, free workshop that we're going to have with him. If you guys are more than welcome to come and join him. But Brian, so what would be like anything last minute that you would want to, before that time comes where they can come to that workshop, what do you think they should do to kind of get them ready or prepared, or maybe not make those mistakes moving forward, to kind of help them become a lot better, making that smart business decision in trading?
Well, best piece of advice I can give anybody who wants to get into trading, and this is something that's wherever you are in your career, the single best trait that you can exercise as a trader is self-awareness. You got to be aware. You got to be aware of where you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, where you are skill-wise on the developmental curve, and on a day-to-day basis, just always being aware of where you are and how you are. Self-awareness is, like I said, that's the one that will serve everybody by far the best. Mm-hmm. And so now, one thing I've got, and they can access it for free. It's a trader scorecard where it's actually a self-assessment. When swing by InsideOutTrading.com, you can take a free. It's a 20 question quiz, but it's a self-assessment of where you're at as a trader and the things that you should be doing. And just taking the quiz itself will tell you a lot as far as if you're having some difficulties, are you doing the things that you should be doing as a trader to make yourself good, to keep yourself properly aligned and organized and mentally right. That scorecard's really helpful, just taking it itself. But I go through each of those individually and respond to them. So that right there can be very helpful. So self-awareness, and be doing self-checks on a regular basis and be brutally honest with yourself. That's like the main thing, is just being honest with yourself.
And get a good mentor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate it. Everybody here, once again, take that QR code, scan it. We'll have Brian back. You got a little workshop we'll have with him here back at Cyber Trading at our Cyber Expo. And also, we'll be back again tomorrow. We're live here with our podcast every Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. We will have a couple of videos made out of this. We'll have a couple of great little shorts. So if you did miss any of the episodes, if you want any of the highlights, we will have that up at the end of the day. Make sure you follow us on our YouTube channel and just like us, friend us, and ring that bell so you can watch it live again. Brian, thanks for coming, and look forward to having you back. And everybody, we'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Best of luck to everybody.